Welcome to AT&T's teleconference service. Please enter your access code, followed by the pound sign. To join the conference as the host, press star. Conference as the host.
The player. There's a player down there.
You want this one to be left right here, and then your pretty UNC ones are right here. I don't think there's anyone here. You could certainly ask.
Yeah,
But no
I
one's.
would recognize the people.
Yeah, I don't think we have
And
anybody
do you
here.
have an attic lamp? I've seen it before. Oh, I got it. It was hiding in my massive paperwork.
Mike Wells.
Has joined the conference.
Yeah, I did. Thank you.
Oh, okay. All right. Good morning, everybody. Let's come to order and. I'm gonna have to. Yeah, I'm gonna have to turn Hugh the Boy Scout loose here. Well, good morning and welcome to our North Carolina Board of Transportation June meeting. My name is Mike Fox. I'm the chairman of the board, and I'd like to welcome all of our board members, our staff, and all of our guests here today. So thank you for coming and participating in our meeting. The first thing I'd like to do is go through our ethics statement, and that is in accordance with NC State Government Ethics Act Executive Order Number 2, issued on January 12, 2009, and NCGS Section 143B-350. It is the duty of every board member to avoid both conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict. To comply with this statement and the state ethics law, I ask whether any board member has a known conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matters coming before the board today. If so, please identify the conflict or appearance of conflict when the item appears on the agenda for consideration. Refrain from any undue participation in the particular matter involved, and sign before our notary the declaration that has been provided to you for such purpose. And I'll obviously give everybody a chance to identify conflicts before we take action on any of the specific items. We've got a quorum, and our first item of agenda is the approval of our May meeting minutes. They've been distributed. All right, a motion by Tony, second by Landon. Any discussion? All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. And who we got on the phone?
Mike Wells.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Our next item of business is the road and bridge naming honorary designation. We have one today, and it is for a national championship sign pursuant to our national championship policy. And I'll ask Nina if she'll come up and read this one for me today.
Thank you, Chairman Fox. Mike was good enough to ask me to do this because this is the first women's team to receive this honor, and we're very excited about that. It's a resolution for the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill 2018 NCAA Women's Field Hockey National Championship. Whereas the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill requests 8 championship signs for winning the 2018 Women's Field Hockey National Championship on November 18th, 2018. And whereas the team won the championship title against the University of Maryland with a 2-0 victory and finished 23-0, becoming the 3rd team in program history to go undefeated. And whereas the team won its first national championship since 2009 and its 7th in school history, all under Coach Karen Shelton. And whereas this championship win meets the criteria to obtain a championship sign, now therefore be it resolved that the North Carolina Board of Transportation honors the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill with 8 national championship signs that read North Carolina Tar Heels 2018 Field Hockey National Champions. The appropriate signs will be erected at a suitable time, adopted this day by the North Carolina Board of Transportation.
I'll take that as a motion by Nina. Is there a second? Second motion. All right, second by Billy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you very much.
Women rule.
Let's get a picture here. Did you get a picture?
Well, I mean, they step forward. They step forward.
Step forward, yeah.
There, perfect.
I will add that I think Landon's going to be bringing forward the next one, which is also a women's championship. Didn't the Duke women's golf team win the national championship?
Oh, yes, sir.
All right, great. So we'll have 2 in a row here. And keeping with my promise, Landon, I said that when Duke won a national championship, I would go there and help present the signs. So, and I'll make that same promise to the NC State fans. So you can count on me. Even if it's after I'm off this board, I will be there. if I'm alive. If I'm alive.
Oh, God.
All right, moving on. Our next 2 items are some technical corrections for the record. You recall in our May meeting, when we met in Fayetteville, we approved 2 road namings, the Matt Campbell Jr. Highway and the Lindo Tippett Highway. Those were duly and appropriately approved, with the exception of our specific language of where they were on the road was not included. Usually we put in from a mile marker here to a mile marker there, or to a road from here to. We did not get that in, so to make sure that the record is correct, I'm going to read in a correction, and if I could get a second on, we'll do those separately, then we'll have our record correctly. The Matt Campbell Jr. Highway should read, now therefore be it resolved that the North Carolina Board of Transportation names the NC 87 bypass from NC 41 to NC 87 in Bladen County as the Matt Campbell Jr. Highway. Is there a second for that correction? Second by Jack. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. And likewise for the Lindo Tippett Highway, it should have read, and I make a motion that it be amended to read, now therefore be it resolved that the North Carolina Board of Transportation names a section of I-295 from I-95 to US 401 in Cumberland County as the Lindo Tippett Highway. That's a motion. Is there a second? Second by John. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously as well. So at this time, I'm going to ask our secretary to come forward and give his remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see you here. May has been a really busy month, and I apologize. I think I missed the last 2 board meetings with conflicts due to all the things going on, so it's been really busy. We had this past month our first NC First Commission meeting. This 14-member commission is composed of financial experts, economists, business leaders, public policy and local government experts, and are tasked with evaluating our current and future transportation investment needs and projecting where transportation challenges will be in the next decade to two. The commission will consider emerging trends, new technologies, changing demographics, and how all that will impact how we move and how we support our economy in the future. Its findings will help us be informed and be forward-thinking in making our transportation investments decisions, as well as, and equally important, our recommendations to the General Assembly on how we evolve in the future. Tony Lathrop, our chairman of our FAST committee, is the board's point of contact for NC First and will keep you informed and updated on its activities. On May the 7th, I had the privilege of speaking at the Research and Innovation Summit at North Carolina A&T State University. This was a great group which the summit gave our university research partners exposure to all the innovation projects going on in our state and a chance to coordinate with all those professionals on ways to address transportation-related issues. I also participated in a panel discussion with Speed News Aerospace Manufacturing Conference in Greensboro on May the 7th. This conference gave us national exposure for recruiting aerospace manufacturing companies and allowed us to showcase all the assets in North Carolina, like how PTI Airport has grown into a major national aerospace and logistics hub and homes to companies like HAECO, Honda Aircraft, and FedEx. Also met with the Rowan Chamber of Commerce during their legislative day, or the group I fondly refer to as the Pat Ivy Fan Club, and enjoyed participating with the NC Chamber of Commerce Transportation and Infrastructure Summit. Both of those were great events. This month, we had $600 million worth of Garvey bonds priced with an overall yield of 2.39%, as you heard yesterday, and it was investment grade at AA+. So we're really excited. That'll allow us to accelerate 58 projects across the state in the coming year. A major milestone was May 23rd. Council of State approved the issuance of the first Build NC bonds. Those bonds are also AA+ rated. This is a tool that will allow the department to continue to deliver critical road projects focused on the region and division tiers, and it allows us to borrow $300 million annually for the next 10 years. The first bond sale will be later this month, and we anticipate it will be signed by the end of the month. Additionally, the General Assembly passed Senate Bill 605, as you also heard yesterday, and that will allow us to receive a loan from the state's rainy day fund as we utilize these funds, so as we wait for FEMA reimbursement from all of our hurricane damage. On May the 20th, we launched the Ocracoke Express passenger-only ferry in Division 1. Instead of taking vehicle ferries only, people now have the option of leaving their cars behind and going to Ocracoke on the Ocracoke Express. The ferry division is leasing this passenger ferry from a New Jersey-based company for this season with the option of doing the same thing next season. It seats 149 people, more than 3 times what a vehicle ferry typically carries, and the cost is $2 per round trip. And it takes people from Hatteras Village through Pamlico Sound directly to Ocracoke Village, not on the South Dock on the north side of the island. The Ocracoke Express has been well received and to date has had 2,335 people ride it in the first 10 days alone. And as you're aware, the passenger ferry currently under construction is behind schedule. The team continues to make every effort to see this vessel completed, and our backup plan is extending the lease for next season. DMV has taken some very proactive steps in preparation for our summer surge. A new driver's license office opened at the UNCC, near the UNCC campus, with 15 workstations, which is the largest office in the state. Saturday morning service is now being offered in 2 additional Wake County driver's license offices through August 24th, and a new driver's license express office will be opened at the depot in Greensboro on June 17th. Other process improvement includes more express lines, dedicated road test teams, customer service representatives on hand to assist customers with documents and to minimize the service time. The goal is to reduce demand by 20% through rapidly expanding our appointments options, improving efficiency by 40% by reducing service times, and improve capacity by 20% by the adding of both the driver's license offices, driver's license examiners, and additional offices. DMV will be reporting to the board subcommittee monthly on their progress. This past week, the northern section of I-77 express lanes opened in Charlotte between Huntersville and Mooresville. The remaining section will be open later this year for the entire almost 25 miles. The Turnpike Authority is providing NC Quick Pass accounts management, billing, and customer service for these express lanes. And starting at opening and before the authority opened two NC Quick Pass customer service centers in Charlotte area, one to serve Monroe and the other primarily for I-77. More than 157,000 transponders have been sold to date. We are now in the 100 deadliest days of summer. We urge parents to educate themselves and teen drivers about risky driver behavior like speeding, distracted driving, and not wearing seatbelts. Our Vision Zero groups in several locations across the state continue their mission to eliminate highway deaths. NCDOT continues to work closely with our Robeson County Vision Zero Task Force, the only countywide group in the state for Vision Zero, and announced at its last task force meeting that the Governor's Highway Safety Program has awarded a $56,000 grant for a new program aimed at increasing seatbelt use in Robeson County, which averages 54 traffic deaths per year. The funding reestablishes a program that historically has been very successful in that community, and under the program, people cited for failing to buckle up can take a 2-hour educational class to have the citation and fines waived on their first offense. We are working with the task force and other local agencies studying 2 highway corridors in Robeson County where 11 people have died over the last 5 years, and looking for some innovative solutions there to bring that 11 number down to 0. I'd like to announce that our General Counsel, Chuck Watts, has accepted a position with the City of Greensboro as their General Counsel. So we really wanted to thank Chuck for his dedicated service to the department and all the hard work he gave, and announce today Daniel Johnson, who served as NCDOT's Deputy General Counsel since 2017, will take over the role as General Counsel. I believe Daniel's here somewhere. Please raise your hand, Daniel. Everybody knows Daniel. Also, it's a privilege to announce J.J. Eden, who's sitting in the back. Raise your hand, J.J. He began his new role as Executive Director for the North Carolina Turnpike Authority on May 6, replacing Bo. J.J.'s been in the tolling business for a long, long time. Although I can't find any proof of this in his resume, I believe he is a native North Carolinian, because I think he collected the first toll on the Fayetteville to Salem Plank Road in North Carolina in 1850. Wealth of experience. He's been involved with tolling facilities nationally since, I think, the Pennsylvania Turnpike when it first opened. So he's been around a long time, and a wealth of experience in tolling and tolling projects. So if you have any questions, don't hesitate to call him. We always want to take time to recognize our employees who go above and beyond the call of duty and service to our state. Several employees quickly acted to help others in medical emergencies in Division 6 and 9 over the past month. So we'd like to ask our Extra Mile Award recipients to come forward. Joe Bailey, Chris Spears, Keith Rivenbark, doing it in division, okay. So we want to recognize them. Brian Matthews, Stephen Walker in Division 6, and Steve McCrary, William Reeves, and Segunde Regalado if I hope I got that right, in Division 9. So we wanted to thank them for their service and recognize their outstanding performance and dedication. And now I'd like to welcome Division 5 District Engineer John Sandor, who will help with a group of 6th graders from Holly Grove Middle School in Holly Springs as they really developed an innovative, thoughtful, award-winning device, and we'd like to recognize them today. So please come forward. Here's John. Turn the podium over to you, Jonathan.
Okay, yeah. It's good to see all these kids again. My name's John Sandor, and just to kind of give you guys a little background, I was reached out to by the class. I don't know, when was it? February? January? Yeah. And yeah, this happens to me a lot, and I'm glad to assist anytime students have interest in the engineering field. I feel it's my duty as an engineer to give back and, again, help groom that next crop of future engineers. And so it's kind of common, but this group was a little different. I noticed with the first round of questions that I was going to be definitely challenged from a skill level. They were very good, concrete, well thought out questions, and I knew I'd had my hands full when I went to speak with them. So I did go down and met with them as kind of a technical advisor, I guess you could say, and they bombarded me with wonderful questions. It was a wonderful experience, and I noticed right out of the gate they had a really good vision, and they were developing that plan, and it was so exciting to kind of see that taking place and being a part of that. So I'm really thankful to have been a part of the experience and watching the project go through the contest aspect of all this was really neat. I was getting emails, kind of updates, and I was tracking it on the news, so I kind of got to see from a distance kind of their success take place. And I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I had a sneaky suspicion that they were going to win this whole thing, and I was right. They really had a strong project, and I knew that right when they kind of explained it to me. I was like, wow, this is interesting. This doesn't sort of exist. So if they should be awarded something, it should be for the ingenuity of this concept and again, safety-driven, which is important, especially for our children's safety. So they really hit the nail on the head with this project, and I'm so happy that they did succeed in winning this contest. I think it's a tribute to the school, the teacher, and the effort put into this. And I'm not going to take any credit. I think that they had this idea and they ran with it, and I was just glad again to be a part of it. So we're going to kind of show you a video. I have not seen this video, so I'm excited myself with their kind of success in the journey.
Holly Springs is a suburb of Raleigh, the capital of North Carolina. In the last 10 years, the population has doubled, and so has traffic. Our friend Destiny was almost hit by a car at the bus stop.
The team at Holly Grove Middle School wants to help prevent this from happening again in the Samsung Solve for Tomorrow contest.
We created a bus stop safety survey. The results showed that 93% of parents and 98% of students felt that cars passing a stop school bus was their biggest safety concern. In North Carolina, there are approximately 300 reports of cars illegally passing school buses at bus stops every day. Nationally, 88% of school bus drivers reported that vehicles had illegally passed their buses at the stop. These are called stop arm violations.
We have a lot of safety concerns because a lot of cars pass this stop arm once it's out.
Previous attempts to address this issue have focused on public education and law enforcement training. Our team took a different approach. We decided to make motorists aware of exactly where the bus will be stopping by creating a smart school bus stop sign.
We conducted focus groups and met with the transportation directors for our school system. They gave us a heat map showing where the most violations occurred.
We knew for this project to be successful, we needed support from our local government. We met with our mayor, who was extremely supportive. He invited us to present to the town council about our project. They gave us a standing ovation.
We also met with Mr. Sandor, an engineer from the NCDOT. We learned that there are very specific requirements for signs. Mr. Sandor offered to help us develop a prototype of the sign from our sketches, but we still needed to create the smart part of the sign.
The Samsung phone and created an app to track the bus routes and stops. The phone is also equipped with an XB that sends a wireless signal to an Arduino on the sign controlling solar-powered LEDs. When the bus is 400 feet from the bus stop, the lights on the sign will start flashing yellow. At 30 feet, the lights will flash red. We installed our prototype in a neighborhood beside our school for testing. Our school district is developing plans to put up our sign at the locations where the most stop arm violations have occurred. We have a goal to reduce violations by 50% by the end of next year.
There's a ton of excitement about our project. 4 local news stations have done stories. The Raleigh News and Observer have written up our project, and our efforts have been featured in School Bus Fleet magazine, a national publication.
We are exploring how to expand the impact of our Samsung Safe school bus stop. We are considering adding audio alerts for visually impaired students.
Our goal is to help prevent even one more child's face from being added to this page.
So we wanted to present the teacher, Ms. Shalene, a certificate of appreciation, as well as all of the class members. So Ms. Shalene, if you'd come up.
Thank you. That's really nice.
Yeah, come on over here.
You guys come over here.
Yeah, we'll get a picture. You come on back. Yes.
Great job, guys.
And maybe before they leave, one of them could help General Overholt with his internet problem.
I can't even open it now.
That's, as they say, a good news story. So I'm really appreciative to bring that here. The secretary had to run. He was asked to be involved in an economic development meeting, potentially a new business coming to North Carolina. So he had to scoot out for that. So, but I thank him for his remarks. And I'll move on to our next part of our agenda.
A participant has left the conference.
Which is the delegated authority. I'd note for the record that items C, D, E, H, and L are delegated to the secretary and require no formal action by the board. On item C, all projects were awarded, were awarded by the secretary to the low bidder. Our next action item is a Prioritization 6.0 update, and I'd ask Jason Scrunch to come up and give us that update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There you go.
Excellent.
I knew who you were, but I wanted to make sure everyone else did.
Sounds great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, board members. Thank you for being here today. I want to present to you kind of the final update, if you will, of Prioritization 6.0 and bring to your consideration the scoring package for approval of our P6.0 scoring components that we'll use to identify projects that will go into the future 2022 to 2031 STIP. As you know, the department operates by STI, and we use a work group that brings recommendations on our scoring components, including our criteria, weights, and processes to the board for your approval. And the point of today's presentation is just to bring to you those final recommendations from our P6.0 work group for your consideration. Before we get into this too much, we do have a staffing change in the spot office, which is pretty neat. And when this new individual joined us, we discovered that we had a nice diversity across our state. So my name is Jason Schrantz. I am the spot manager representing our Wolfpack. To the chairman's note earlier, we do, our athletic motto is wait till next year. It's going to be fantastic. So, representing our 49ers is Sarah Lee, is a co-worker of mine in the back of the room here. She runs up our non-highway modes. Austin Chamberlain is our GIS whiz, if you will, representing the mountains. And our newest member, taking my old slot of scoring the highway projects, is Mr. Justin Green. He's in a training class today and couldn't be here, but representing the Aggies. So if we do ever need to expand and want to add a fifth member to the prioritization office, we would obviously need someone from ECU or UNCW to cover the entire state. Very good.
They won't let us have an engineering school.
All right, so wrapping up P6.0 work group, we did meet every month between the months of October 2018 and this past May. We did use some subcommittees in between to address technical items, and then all recommendations that you're seeing today were made from a consensus point of view. We did not take votes. We like to operate consensus just from the point that everyone can support the decisions once they leave that room. We've already presented on a lot of these. I'm only going to give you updates on newer items, but we've talked about the 6-year committed window. So the STIP that's coming out, the 20 to 25 STIP, the first 6 years will be committed projects. This is a change from previous prioritization cycles where we had a 5-year committed window. We talked about local input points and our scoring process. We'll cover more of that in a second. We've already discussed the final ferry, transit, and bike ped scoring components. Ferry, transit, and rail. Today we're going to cover quickly highway, aviation, and bike ped. All right. So far in our previous updates, we have talked about from the highway standpoint how we wanted to separate out mobility and modernization scoring. We did get consensus from our work group members to follow this approach. So the mobility scoring are projects that add capacity to the roadway, and your modernization projects are things that bring it up to current standards and or change a freeway to interstate standards. This often includes just adding width to your shoulders or changing your bridge heights or things like that, where we're just modernizing the roadway but we're not adding new capacity. For that said, the modernization default weights use at the statewide level, use congestion, safety, freight. Those are kind of what I call my big three. And then we also use lane width, shoulder width, and pavement condition. And these are parts of the roadway that are measurable and are part of that, bringing it up to current design standards. This does, at the statewide level, is 100% based on data. At the regional level, you see the same criteria weightings. We again use the lane width, shoulder width, and pavement condition. At the regional impact level, that's 70%, and then the remaining is split for your local input points at 15% each. At the division needs level for modernization, we drop congestion, but we also include a high percentage of safety, simply because when you're modernizing a roadway, you're often doing it for safety. You're giving that driver more confidence that the roadway can handle the driving conditions, and so we want to address that as well. Again, at the division needs level, as a reminder of all of our scoring, 50% goes to quantitative score, and then the other 50 is split between our MPOs, RPOs, and our division staff. We do allow area-specific weights, so if a certain region or division wants to change these weights, they are allowed to do that for modernization and for mobility. So the mobility criteria and weights are the same as they were in P5.0. These were the original default weights from P5.0. Same graph. use things like congestion, benefit cost, safety, freight, and this is where your accessibility and connectivity come in at the regional and the division level, and then economic competitiveness is a consideration at the statewide level. All right. Our formulas for how we calculate these scores for highway projects did not change from P5 to P6. These are the same formulas and calculations. We had a lot of discussion about things around reliability and resiliency and those type things, and we hope to continue those discussions for P7 and future changes, but we feel that we have a nice stability in the way we're calculating our projects, and we like the results that we're seeing. So congestion hits things like volume, capacity, and volume. Our safety looks at our number of crashes and the severity of those crashes. And for freight, we have the truck volume, truck percentage, and then our future interstate completion factor as well. Again, lane width, pavement width, and shoulder width, and pavement condition. These are mainly ones where we're looking at the deficiency along our roadway. Kind of what is the standard, and what is it going to take to get to that standard as well. All right. For aviation, there was one major change. In P5, we had a non-state contribution index, basically other funds that were being brought to the project. We incorporated this into the same way that rail and highway does scoring, including a funding leverage piece to the benefit cost equation. And so we needed a new measure. And so the aviation had a subcommittee that they put together of experts, and they developed what we're calling our constructability index. Basically, how shovel ready is the project? Where is it in design, and how quickly can we get that project on the ground, which is great. For bicycle and pedestrian scoring, a couple changes here. In the safety criteria, we once had a speed limit measure. We have removed that speed limit measure and added this new safety risk assessment. It's basically an exposure index on how safe that section of road or that project would be to a user. And so we replaced that. We're using data from the new Atlas project to help accomplish this. Also, in P5.0, we had an access criteria, and we also had a connectivity criteria. For P6, it was decided, the work group recommended to combine those because those often kind of work in tandem together. So we're looking at points of interest, the number of connections you're making to existing infrastructure and planned infrastructure, and if your project is part of a national bike or pedestrian route. And so you see the updated quantities as percentages there as well. And just a reminder, bicycle pedestrian projects are only eligible at the division needs level. We do have a slight adjustment in our schedule. Van Augerbright presented yesterday that we're shifting the STIP, the 2020 to 2029 STIP to September. Our partners need that information, that final STIP release before they can submit new projects. So we've adjusted our schedule 3 months to accommodate this. And so now we'll be submitting projects at the end of the year between October and December of 2019. Basically, we're keeping our same structure of our schedule. Really, the only change from that point forward is that the new 2022 to 2031 STIP will be released in April of 2021 instead of January. So that's where we're making up our 3-month adjustment there. The work group did decide to kind of keep going. We want to continue our work group discussions and not lose traction on things that we're working on. So we do plan on having an ongoing prioritization work group and basically just kind of get ahead of our next cycle, P7.0, and start looking at new data sources. Some of the main things we want to address is for highway is continue the discussion of reliability and resiliency along our network, and also look at new data sources for accessibility and multimodal. For bike ped, it's been a long desire and one we hope to accomplish soon of actually getting economic benefits in a monetized fashion in bike ped, and we want to continue that conversation here. Transit is one that we rely heavily on ridership, and so we know there's some new data sources out there, and we want to validate those and look at those as well as transportation disadvantage. This was a research project that ITRI did this past cycle. They looked at things in kind of a qualitative way. We want to kind of formulate that. Can we look at quantitative measures that could help us look at our citizens that are transportation disadvantaged? We plan on meeting every 4 to 6 weeks, a little less strenuous than our current work group, and starting this fall. All right, so this is my staff. If you ever need us, we'll be glad to assist you. I do want to say we did pass out a document in front of you. This is the full scoring package of what we're asking you to consider for approval at your July meeting. The front page is basically how the structure of STI works in our scoring. Page 2 is all your highway, includes the definitions of all the criteria with your mobility and your modernization weights. Page 3 has aviation and bike ped. Page 4 is ferry, and you'll also see page 4 and page 5 have 3 different groupings for transit projects. That's because we look at these 3 different ways based on the project type. Based on your fixed route systems, your demand and response, which is a van coming to pick you up, and then your facility projects, sort of like your terminals and your admin and service facilities. On page 6 is your rail scoring. And the last 2 pages are all the process improvements or process things that we need in order to do scoring. The first part is normalization. The only change here is the non-highway division needs is now a division competition. In P5.0, it was like half statewide competition, half division competition. Each division now will get that 4% of projects. We talk about the committed projects, your carryover ones that we automatically score and don't require a submittal slot. And then the last 2 items are your number of submittals, and on the last page, your local input points. You'll see one note is the last bullet point. We do have a new flexing policy that we've presented before the board here, but basically each organization can now move some of their points between regional impact and division needs to fit their needs of their local organization. So if you have any questions over the next month, we're definitely a resource and here to help.
Questions for Jason? Nina?
I understand sort of the way we've thought about that in the past. How are we incorporating technology into that discussion about modernizing our facility?
So on the highway side, we have multiple specific improvement types that address kind of your ITS type projects, your intelligent transportation systems. A lot of those actually do add capacity to the roadway because you're getting more effective use out of your road than you're currently getting because of those enhancements. And so we actually score those from a mobility side, not a modernization side. We can always continue the conversation on innovative and technology is definitely changing every day. So
Electrification of the highways, introduction of broadband.
Yes, ma'am.
Those kinds of things that are, we'll talk about this in a few minutes, but just as part of our 2050 plan, the strategic plan, I'm sure you're all plugged into that, but
yes, we are.
It seems to me that conversation needs to be starting now as we're.
Yeah, we can definitely add that. I also feel like prioritization will need to address some major technology improvements like automated vehicles and connected vehicles in the future. We haven't really come up on those type situations yet. We're just now starting to begin the discussion on those types of projects. So I'm sure in future prioritization cycles, those will be addressed.
My second question has to do with, you mentioned resiliency, which is, I'm really happy to hear that we're talking about that. That's a sort of a response, but are we also talking about Executive Order 80 and how we make decisions that also incorporate greenhouse gases and what we're doing to contribute or mitigate on that?
Yes, ma'am. We've added that to the list, and I apologize I didn't have it up on there, but that's definitely something that we want to address in the future. Biggest thing I would say is we feel that by reduction of congestion and enhancing travel time savings on our projects, that we hope to address that from a broad perspective, but we know that there's going to be projects specifically that address those needs as well, and we hope to get those into the system. So
will that be something that you incorporate into 7?
Yes, 7, or at least bring it up into our ongoing prioritization committee and have a discussion in 7 for sure.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Other questions for Jason? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. And if any of the division engineers did not get the packet, we have some extras in the back. Just let us know before we leave, and we'll get that for you.
So, I want to just highlight, kind of what Jason has said. And there's a reason that you've become very familiar with Jason, and that he and I met when they started 6.0. And I said, would you please come and brief the board at every point in this process to give us plenty of opportunity for understanding and input? Because sometimes in boards, you don't see the product until the cake is baked, and then it's kind of hard to have significant input. And we certainly didn't want to have that in this process because, I really, folks, this is how the sausage is made, to really, kind of get down to how it works. This is what drives what projects get advanced and what projects get scored. And we need to make sure that we understand the process so that, from a policy perspective, we can make sure that the priorities of the board and the state are being met by the process. And so our understanding of it and our diving into it to make sure that it's spitting out the desired outcomes is critical. So that's why you've become very familiar with Jason, and I appreciate his efforts to come and keep us updated at every point. And this is a great summary of kind of the changes, and they're more than happy to sit down with any board member if you want a more deep dive into how it works. A few of us have been fortunate enough to kind of be around at the beginning, so we have a little more exposure to it, but it does take a while to really understand what causes a project to succeed and what causes a project to fail. So I would encourage you to be feel free to talk to Jason and his group about the importance of this if you have any questions. So thank you again for that. I want to check and see make sure if we had people on the phone just for attendance purposes. Is anybody on the phone? I know I heard Mike Wells earlier. Okay, I don't hear anybody.
Yeah. This is Gus. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good. Okay, thanks, Gus. We wanted to make sure that we had you recorded on there as being here. All right, the next action item is the approval to adopt the proposed administrative code for the logo and tourist-oriented directional signs program. As Kevin Lacey explained yesterday, we are required to review our rules every so often. And the Secretary of Transportation is the rulemaking authority for most of the rules except those pertaining to this program, the logo program and the tourist-oriented directional signs program. And the board is the rulemaking authority for those programs. And there are 4 rules: the logo program, the location of tourist-oriented directional signs, the composition of signs, and the fees. So as you heard Kevin explain yesterday, we went through the process where we submitted the rules to the Rules Review Commission, and they go through the process of submitting or asking for comments. There were no comments that were submitted on our rules, and so staff is recommending and requesting that we approve the rules as submitted by them. And I'd look for, if there's no discussion, I'd look for a motion on that. Motion to approve by Jack, second by Billy. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, thank you for that. Our next section is the approval of projects. And at this time, I'll ask any board members if they have specific recusals. So Tony?
I just have 2, Mr. Chairman. On page R2, it's project 8-4407. And item O, page 10, it's project 48735.
Okay, anyone else? Landon?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And in abundance of caution to avoid a possible conflict, I'd like to recuse myself from the following agenda items. The agenda item K2, K5, L1, M2, M3, NO, and that is all.
Okay, anyone else have any conflicts? All right, thanks. If y'all would just make sure you submit the paperwork on those to Chris, our secretary. Is there any discussion on any of the items? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve? Motion by Cully. Is there a second? Second by Allen. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Our next agenda item is the committee report. So we had two committees that did not meet this month, the Workforce Committee and the EDIR Committee. I'll go ahead and give the very brief Road, Bridge, Ferry Naming Committee summary report, which you already know about because our only action item yesterday was the recommendation of the Women's Field Hockey National Championship sign for UNC. I do note that our staff told us to buckle our seat belts for next month because we have a number of items coming, I think 11 or so I heard. So you'll see those in the following month after that. So 2 months from now, we may have a bunch of those to consider. So that's the report for the Road, Bridge, and Ferry Naming Committee. Next, I'll go to the Audit Committee. Nina, did you want to give that report?
We did not have a quorum for that committee, but we received really an information report updating us on the status of all the various audits. I just have to tell you that Mary Morton is the most impressive business leader, and I know all of us have been concerned about how we fill out all the vacancies that are in that department, and she reported that she's really made a lot of progress. The work that we all did to improve the sort of the salary ranges here at DOT was very helpful. We've gotten more candidates, and she's got some good prospects.
Great, thank you. It's a great report. And those of you who have had the privilege of serving on the Audit Committee can echo what Nina said about the strength of our leadership there. And they really do a critical role. I mean, they're the ones that go in behind and audit the contracts and audit our functions to make sure that things are being run as they should be run. So, and as Nina noted, they have had trouble filling positions, and obviously it's tough to do your job if you're not fully staffed, but they've made some success in that recently. So thank you for that good report, Nina. Mm-hmm. I know the DMV committee met, and Mike Alford was not able to be here this morning to give that report, but I think his vice chair, John Pope, is going to give that.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, the DMV committee convened under the direction of our chair, Mike Alford. We received a myriad of updates from DMV Commissioner Jessup. These included various new initiatives and strategies that are underway within the Division of Motor Vehicles. Some of these, as noted in the Secretary's remarks this morning, they are the North Carolina DMV strategic plan developed in conjunction with the UNC School of Government, the department setting new goals and priorities, the relocation of the DMV headquarters, a more efficient human resources strategy, peak season strategy for site operations, a program called BEATLE, be a driver of leadership and excellence, new metric scorecards, IT initiatives, internal DMV initiatives, and capacity initiatives. These initiatives and strategies aim to minimize the amount of time DMV customers spend in the driver's license offices across the state. Overall, we had a good session, and the committee stands ready to assist the commissioner and his staff to continue processes of significant change and improvement department-wide with the goal of overall improvement of service level to the customer. That concludes my report. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, John. That does sound like a good meeting. And I talked to Mike yesterday as he was headed out of town, and he said they had a very good meeting. And the Secretary and I have talked about having Commissioner Jessup come and address the whole board at our next meeting on Thursday morning. So you can look forward to that because Tori's worked really hard to address a lot of long-standing issues that have been out there. And I think the board will be pleased to hear all the progress that's being made and the things that are yet to be done as well. So thank you, John. Highways Committee, Cully.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Highway Committee met in this room yesterday afternoon, and we had two outstanding presentations. The first one was by Division One engineer Jerry Jennings, who brought us up to date on the opening and dedication of the new Mark Basnight Bridge over the Oregon Inlet, and also brought us up to date on the demolition that has already taken place on the previous Bonner Bridge, and the fact that they've already opened up a 1,000-foot section, or have already opened up an area for navigation purposes, which is good news. He also brought us up to date, and I'm going to mispronounce this, Alan. How do you pronounce Rodanda Bridge? Rodanthe Bridge, which is a $145 million design build contract awarded in January 17. It's about 17% complete and is scheduled to be completed in 2020. And if you can visualize the location of the Basnight Bridge head south is where this bridge that we're talking about now is located. So that is well underway. Our second presentation was from Kevin Lacey, who discussed safety improvement projects help to reduce crashes. Now I want you to listen to this number. The average annual comprehensive crash cost in 2017, which was 2 years ago, was $27.4 billion, and that's with a B. So the work that Kevin and his group does with regards to safety on our roads is critically important. Unfortunately, some of the safety changes that we come up with and that we implement are not always well received by the public because it creates change in driving habits. And I'm sure each one of us has had our ear burned by a telephone call or in the face from someone who did not like the changes, even though it was done for safety purposes. So even though I was absent the day the Lord passed out patience, I try to be patient and listen and try to help people understand that there is a purpose behind these changes, and that purpose is the saving of lives and the reduction of accidents that create injuries. And as we said yesterday in the meeting, you know, there's an old TV commercial that says the life you save may be your own. The life saved may be your own through the work that Kevin and his people do. So I, for one, am grateful to him and will continue to just tolerate the phone calls and the in your faces and try to make people understand that we're doing it for their own good. And because those safety changes that we implement do save lives. We know that statistically they save lives. So that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Cully. And I know personally you've had to exercise a lot of patience recently. Cully, one of the areas he represents is where I grew up, Boone, and there's a certain street by the old high school where I went to high school where they've been struggling with accidents and such there, and there was a proposed super street, and they've just gone back and forth, and I think you're kind of back at the beginning now on that. So I'm sure you've had a lot of input on that. So that's right, absolutely. Multimodal, Billy, I think you're going to give that report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I chaired this meeting in the absence of Mr. Perkins with the assistance of Chief Deputy Howard. Chief Deputy Howard read a summary of information that Multimodal Director Julie White had provided because she had to go to another meeting. We talked about the House and Senate budgets. Both include additional funds for rail service, maintaining train sets, and making improvements to stations. The Senate and the House budget differ on some areas, and that's, since those are both a work in process, probably have another report on that next month. Julie White also presented to the Secretary's first commission on the future of modes and described a future where seamless mobility drives economic health, quality of life, and connections to one another in the world. She was actually making a presentation to the governor's office yesterday, couldn't be there. We heard a very good presentation from Jason Orthner with the Rail Division. He is working with the congressional delegation, and particularly Representative Price, and his staff to position NC to pursue federal grant opportunities for corridor acquisition for the S line between Richmond and Raleigh. He actually testified before the Congressional Committee on Passenger Rail. North Carolina has been meeting with Virginia to coordinate on the S line efforts and are planning a trip with Southeast Compact members in July to D.C. On the bike and on the passenger ferry, we heard a great report from Harold Thomas, a report on the ferry division in general, and as the Secretary indicated, the passenger ferry has had a very successful launch, and I think that it was either yesterday or the day before, there was a record number of passengers, or the highest number of passengers that they'd had to date, and those would be some of the 2,300 or so the Secretary mentioned. And finally, we didn't hear a presentation, but Hannah Cockburn provided some information. We earlier this year, the NCDOT announced that its bicycle and pedestrian and public transportation divisions would be merging into one division focused on community mobility, vibrancy, and economic development, although that we still don't have an actual name for that. Well, we're calling it the Public Transportation Division, but we're proud to announce that Hannah Cockburn has been named the director of that division, and she introduced two interns yesterday who are working with that division through the HBCU program, and I apologize for not remembering their names, but they were both there and introduced themselves to the committee. And finally, the Aviation Division NCDOT was awarded the Association for Unmanned Vehicle Systems International's Excellence Award at the AUVSI's annual Exponential Conference. The award comes with a $5,000 prize, and that will be presented to the North Carolina Disaster Relief Fund. And we did actually approve several minor amendments to funding items. Mostly were just changes and to not a lot of additional funding for Public Transportation Division, Bike and Ped, and Rail and Aviation. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Billy. I see Hannah's here. Hannah, do you want to introduce your interns to us? Are they here?
They are here. If people stand and introduce yourselves.
Good morning. I'm Yat Tichua Akwa. I'm from a student at North Carolina A&T from the Department of Computational Science and Engineering. I'm a graduate student. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is DeAndrea Harper. I'm a senior physics major from North Carolina Central University.
Thank you. Welcome. I'm sure Hannah will be getting lots of good workout of you while you're here interning with us. So thank you for coming to work with us.
Just had such an exciting presentation yesterday under the leadership of Deputy Secretary Howard. A lot of work is underway in the department to align all of the different areas with advancing technologies. We received a presentation from Nastasia Earl-Young, who is in transportation planning, and from Lita Hunsinger, who's a project engineer for WPS, and Alpesh Patel with Cambridge Systematics, about this North Carolina Moves 2050, which is our strategic plan. We asked that you'll probably be getting this in your mailbox. We're going to get a link to this. A lot of public involvement has been underway, reaching out to partners all over the state for input. An overview was presented on the plan, development and accomplishments, the arising issues, NCDOT and the partners' roles in technology, trends, and impacts. That just doesn't even begin to give you all the information that's contained in the reports. Everything from advancement of drone taxis and 3D printing and how that might change opportunities in some of the parts of the state where we've not traditionally had manufacturing opportunities, autonomous vehicles, just so many things that are happening that are not, this is not Jetson stuff. This is really work on the ground. It's happening. The private sector is taking a huge lead on this. And so as an agency, it's our job to understand what's happening and to be able to flex and respond to that. And that is really, and to position North Carolina as a leader. And I believe that the work that David's doing and his teams, along with our private sector partners, is really doing a great job of positioning us. So in addition to that, David and I have asked our committee members, and I would really invite all of you to do this, is to share with us what are you most interested in terms of all of these advancing technologies, and what policy areas can we be working on together to help the department advance this. So we're going to be dropping that into your mailbox as well, asking you to share your thoughts about that. Let's see. David is really interested in aligning what we get from you all with the work that's underway, so that we can all be working together on achieving some of these goals. It's really tremendously exciting, and I look forward to working with all of you. David, I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that. Yeah, you'll be getting a link to take the survey under the North Carolina Moves. I think it's ncdot/ncmoves.gov. Okay. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Nina. And I want to circle back just a second to multimodal. I had meant to update folks too, just briefly. As far as multimodal is concerned, Nina is our board representative on the North Carolina Railroad. And at some point in the near future, we'll get Nina to come and provide a little update for what's going on with the railroad.
Sure.
And I serve on the North Carolina-Virginia High-Speed Rail Compact, which Billy mentioned. And we've recently had an internal meeting of our group. It's myself, 2 members of the House and 2 members of the Senate. And the House and the Senate have both made good appointments to fill those roles. These are transportation chairs and people who are influential in those bodies in regards to transportation. So I think we have a good committee. And we're going to be, as Billy said, traveling to D.C. in July to meet with our counterparts in Virginia. And I think there's some real enthusiasm and opportunity seen here about really advancing high-speed rail along that corridor in some very innovative ways. So after that meeting, I'll give a report as well on where we are on that. I know FAST Committee has not met yet, and this is a good opportunity for me to remind everyone of the FAST Committee that you're meeting immediately after this. But I thought I might ask Tony if he would just give a brief update on the new commission that the chairman has put together, not the chairman, the secretary has put together on financing, which Tony serves as our liaison on that.
Thank you, Mike. We had our first meeting May 3rd, and the commission is chaired by Ward Nye, who's the CEO of Martin Marietta, and Nancy McFarland, who's the mayor of Raleigh. And it's got a mix of expert people in finance and demographics and local government, state government, and the industry to look at the trends. And we've talked about it. This is familiar to the people on the FAST committee. We've talked about it in the FAST because the gas tax revenues are projected to start going down, and we're way reliant on those. So this is to explore, eventually get to the menu of revenue options that may be available, but also as we do that, to look at what's driving that, the trends, and all the technology disruptors that are coming that a lot of us have heard about as well. So our next meeting is July the 12th here. And then in the FAST committee, and the FAST committee folks know this, we'll be sort of advancing some of the topics for that committee, try to air those out and test them for that. So it's good stuff.
Okay, great. And I would encourage, I sat in along with Tony on the first meeting, and I'm going to try to make as many of those meetings as I can, but I would tell everyone, and I'll get Ann to send this out, a link to that commission has their own website. And they've got some really good materials on the website. They have the presentations from, all the presenters who spoke at the first meeting, including Julie White gave an update on, different modes of transportation, and a gentleman, I can't remember his name. He's a very prominent transportation speaker on the future of transportation. He's been the Secretary of Transportation in, I think, Colorado, Delaware, and maybe Kentucky. He came and spoke, and his presentation is on that website too. So there's some interesting information, even if some of it you may have seen before in terms of the topics. I would think it would be worth your while to go on there and just look and see what they're looking at. And there's a couple of presentations on there that you may not have seen before. So I think that would be worthwhile for your time to do that.
And I would like to recognize the strategic planning shop, Amna Cameron and Bert to Psycho, and Ann's DeShong's groups helping us also with meeting support, and Greer Beatty and Blake King and their group. They're doing a super job in setting up basically sort of a new side board for this, which is a lot of work, and they're really on their game, and we hope to finish the work at the beginning of 21, so over the next 18 months or so.
And the goal being the next legislative long session would be that year. So our hope is that we have some concrete proposals that have been thoroughly vetted out, not only by our board, but also by this independent commission, that we can take, to the governor's office and then to the legislature to have some proposals in mind to advance our funding issues that we have. So thank you for that report, Tony. Other business and closing comments. I would note, you all may have noticed when you drove in this morning, there's things going on across the street in the Capitol. The House and the Senate are having special sessions. I think the Senate was at 10, the House at 11, to commemorate the North Carolinians who participated in the D-Day landings 75 years ago today. So that's going on across the street and may be of interest to you, and something that certainly we should all honor and commemorate there. Our next meeting, as you recall, our July meeting is always in the end of June. So our next meeting will be here in Raleigh, June 26th through the 27th. And one more housekeeping thing. There's a page in front of you that has to do with state board and commission members' classification and compensation waiver. The payroll folks like you to do this annually, and this is just an opt-out, basically. So if you do not want to receive per diem or reimbursements, pardon?
So if you don't want taxable items, you don't want them, then you just sign and turn it in. We'll make sure that we don't give you reimbursement that will be taxed. If you don't care, don't sign it.
And if you if you are if you are opting in, then you don't have to sign this, right? So this is just an annual update, and if anyone's confused over it, Ann and Chris will be glad to help them. As you recall, was it 2 years ago? There was a kind of a shift in the taxation implications of it, which required everybody to kind of figure this out again. So if you have any questions, I'm sure Ann can help you figure out whether you need to fill this out again or not. And I do want to second Tony's compliment of all our staff running the NC First Commission. That ding you heard while Tony was talking was Ann sending you what I had just asked her to send you. So that's the kind of efficiency we get is I hardly get it out of my mouth and Ann's executed it. So, and that is consistent with her entire team and our other staff members who help make these meetings possible. I know all you board members know, this stuff just doesn't appear up here on the screen without a lot of work. And so thank you to all of our staff and all your hard work for all the presentations and the information that we get. Any other items for consideration today? All right, hearing none, I'll look for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Millie, is there a second? Second by Allen, all in favor say aye. Aye. All right, see you in a few weeks.
Yeah.
Mike Wells.
Has left the conference.
Gus, tell us he's left.